everyone. Welcome again to another episode of the Musings of Modern Mystics. My name is Lorelei Hewitt.
And I'm John Davis.
And we're talking to you on a Saturday today instead of a Sunday. No, wait.
Monday. Normally it's a Monday.
It's Sunday. It's not Monday.
It's Saturday.
Saturday. You know what? Time is just fluid for me right now. It's the Solstice weekend, and I've been doing some solstice celebrating. How about you, John? Have you had any?
I have been totally working. I'm building a birch circle, and that birch circle needed to have one of the radiuses coming off of there that went right to where the sun set on the solstice. So it's I had to organize that so that because it's hard to see through the trees to see where the sun is setting. Mm-hmm. So I had to do a lot of little things to try to get it organized so that I have a straight line coming from the center of my circle going out to exactly where the sun sets in the
So how come we're not at your place having a solstice celebration?
Well, we will be doing that as soon as I get, I would say that when the holes get dug and the trees get planted, because it'll have a birch circle, so it'll be perfect for, obviously the summer solstice is a beautiful time, and one of the things that I thought would be interesting is in the winter solstice, it would be dark, but it would be all white in the circle because the birch trees will have grown. So let's give it a couple of years. Let's plant it, give it a couple of years, and when the birch trees grow up, it'll be pretty spectacular.
All right, so it's a date. Everybody, in 2 years, we're going to meet at John's house, and we'll be in a circle with our staffs and celebrating the shortest night of the year, the longest day of the year. One thing I have to say about the solstice, the summer solstice, that hola, Simone. You have one person that's already she's got it on their calendar. Anyway, the thing about this holiday that I don't particularly like is that...
Something you hate about this holiday.
No, it's not that I hate. Okay. Well, it means the days are now getting shorter. So now we
won't be getting shorter for a while.
Well,
for 6 weeks.
They do though, John.
Okay. by seconds.
By seconds.
Yeah. But we've a minute and a half every day. I'm pretty sure there'll be no daylight at all.
I know, right? But we're entering that period of contraction.
Yeah.
And it's nice because there's order that is coming into our lives, and it's the energy of the Cancerian soul, right? Which is, in astrological terms, the Cancer sign is one of home body, home life. This is the sign that the 4th of July takes place in, which is all about the home of the United States. It's very homey. Most people go on vacations to see relatives. You have relatives coming up. I do too. It's a very, very family-oriented time. But that's not what we're really talking about today. We're just kind of schmoozing. No, we're talking about what we're talking about are those interesting things that when John and I, the way we pick these topics is we look at what we've seen in our clients throughout the week.
Right.
And what we've dreamt about. And this one was actually a dream that you had last night that is from some spirits that John and I work with very closely. And hi, Sue Sims. I see your comment too. Yes, anyway, I'm so easily distracted by things. So the thing that we're interested in today is what we've noticed is about how when we extract those blocks in people's bodies and in their minds and their hearts as healers, when people come to us and we work with that, we have noticed that it takes more than just getting rid of the blocks to help a person truly heal or to grow.
Right.
So why don't you...
So I want to tell something about this dream or this sequence of the dream. Mm-hmm. And that it tried to tell me about the idea that blocks are something that appears to be outside yourself that is keeping you from having relationships or money or energy or ability to think and do things during your day that are required of you and that you also want to do. So these are things that make people unhappy because they're blocks in the way of their happiness and their sense of presence in their body and in their life. Mm-hmm. And then I got this image of what if all the blocks were taken away and then nothing happened, nothing really changed. And I thought, well, that's an interesting thing. What's the other half of that? And the other half of that is when the blocks are all gone, what do you do to make contact with the part of you that died inside or became numb inside or stopped growing inside because you had to deal with these blocks all the time? And so we have an experience, and I think you've had it as well as me, is that we can do something to energetically remove the blocks and at the same time pull and move energy through the whole system. And then if we see that person again the next week, it's all back. What happened? Yeah. And part of what the dream sequence told me was what happens is there is a part in there that when the blocks are removed that still is as if you had a young kid who had a failure to thrive, that there's something that person needs to do for themselves to open up their own system so that part of them that was numb, that was lost, that was emotionally incapable of holding the energy and needed those blocks in order to just make it through their day. Yeah. And so I had to feel like, so the failure to thrive dynamic in addition to the removal of the blocks, so that we had to come up with some way to help that. So once the blocks are removed, then we could work on what's the failure to thrive piece, or what's the failure to open up inside you that allows for emotional maturity to arise, that gives you the capacity to handle the life that you've created all by yourself. Now, the other thing, we don't go to this place where you create your own reality. In some essence structure, there is, you create your own reality, but we're not that smart. We're not that smart at all. So the idea that you knew every damn detail of how you created the mess that you're in is insulting. It tells people that they did something wrong, that they something they missed. And it's possible that they did, but none of us know every detail of the things that we've created for ourselves. And so to blame ourselves or to have somebody blame you because you created your own reality seems to be painfully insolent. And I think that we need to say, what are the places that you know that helped create the reality that you're in right now, and pick one of those that we can work with, because that internal part is something only they can do, and it's not something you can do completely. So we're working with not only the blocks that we can evaporate, explode, shorten their lifespan, open up to new possibilities, explode in another way, but we're going to see if we can find out, is there something else that person can go home with for themselves that they're usually already working on, and we'll help them work on that more, because that will stabilize the system and open it up. Open up its potential for emotional maturity in the face of the things that they're currently already doing, so that when we see them again, those same blocks won't be there.
So I think of a block, what I've noticed in people when I see things that are where the energy is not moving, something has stopped. It's usually there is a point of tension in someone's life. They want this, but they also want that. Or it could be a belief system where I believe that I'm like this, but other people, my parents, my children, my friends, they see me like that. And there's a conflict between their beliefs and my beliefs about myself. And that tension can create even a physical block, like an ulcer or a tumor or an exploding organ, like an appendix. It just, although in all fairness, usually the exploding organ comes when the block is released, when there's so much tension that it just bursts inside us. And that, do we create that reality? No, it's not that we wanted to suffer, but the suffering that was there has been there for so long and has become so dense that it does literally burst out of us. And sometimes that isn't a very physical way, or sometimes it's an emotional outburst, and we'll just be blah, and suddenly you lose it with the person that you've been in tension with. But that can live in you physically, it can live in you emotionally, and to look at that then as a teacher and look at that and go, okay, here I am holding on to the past, because usually if you're in a tension with something, the tension is it's the past and the future. Now sometimes it can be the present, and actually that leads me to the next thing that is kind of interesting. I call it the third wind, and as healers, I think we often operate as that third wind. I'm from Nebraska, and in Nebraska there are wonderful intense storms and winds that just blow constantly.
The rest of us call them tornadoes, and they'll blow your house down.
They will blow your house down. They're not always tornadoes, but yes, they can be. The tornadoes are they're magical, they're powerful, and they're caused by a third wind. You'll have maybe a warm air current and a hot air current that are in a slight tension with each other, and here comes a cold air current that just it will break up that tension. And it takes 3 air currents to create a tornado. So when you have a tension in your body and a third wind comes, now it can be in the form of a healer, where you're asking somebody to help you get rid of that block, that tense thing inside yourself, or it could be caused by just the right kind of food, the right kind of another stressful event that is outside of that particular tension, that can cause a heart attack or something even. And those things then break up the energy that has been actually quite stable for a very long time in that tenseness. So now, okay, the block has been released, your appendix has burst, you've had a heart attack, or you've had an emotional meltdown, oh my word, which is usually my the way I release things. I know that I'm a very calm, mellow person, but believe me, every now and then I lose it. But when that happens, what next, John? What does come next? We have to fill that back up. We have to look at it and be really brutally real about what we were in tension with, and bring our attention into something more positive.
So I think that one of the earliest teachings that I have about how one works with oneself when one comes across a blocking mechanism, whether it's a spirit or whether it's your own emotional preference, or whether it's a certain level of comfort that you'd like to achieve and haven't, that you start to feel inside that there is something that's not quite you. And when you go, that's not me, it's not exactly what I would like to be feeling, it's actually literally not you.
Yes. Yep.
And so when you're in that space, you begin to say, I want to change. I want to change to what? And we were talking about before, we wanted to have a better relationship, we wanted to have more energy, we wanted to feel more alive, we wanted to be happier in the relationships that we were in, or any of those things. So when we say that we want something, so this is getting into the art of manifestation, then the first thing we do, and this isn't to jinx it, the first thing we do is calculate resistance. What is the resistance in you? What is the resistance in your world?
Yeah, that's the point of tension.
What is the resistance in the relationships?
Yeah.
So if I say, I want to do this and make more money or have more love or have more energy, then there's a voice in my head saying, who the hell are you to ask for that? You won't do that. You're going to sit and watch television or drive around the block 150 times, and it's like you'll do anything to avoid dealing with whatever that is. And so I go, I listened to that voice tell me that it was going to fight me every step of the way inside me. And I went, you're the resistance.
Yep.
Then I think, okay, well, how will this new thing that I'm doing affect my relationships? Will my wife or will a friend of mine say, John, you've already got all that. Who cares about that stuff? You don't need to do any of that stuff. It just effortlessly it'll come to you. Don't worry about it. And I'll go, they're also part of the resistance. Like they want me to do nothing. They like me just the way I am. And they're not going to be supportive of some change. And then there's the world. What if the world doesn't, what if I come up with a new healing technique of some sort? But nobody cares about it. Nobody sees it as valuable. The world won't pay for it. And I'm like, but this was such a great idea. This was really a great feeling. And I feel the resistance of the world. So we calculate your own internal resistance, the resistance in your close relationships, and the resistance in the world. And then you begin to breathe and open up. It's from a space we were calling before of a deep meditation, where that particular change that you're wanting to make is said yes to all the way through until you come out to the surface of yourself and you realize, okay, there's the first resistance is in me. And then gently you move through that and you allow the block. There's a certain energy when you and the block meet. And you were talking about the third wind. And then you use the energy from your meditation to bring the third wind about, and you move through your own internal resistance, and then you'll get to the resistance of your loved ones, and then you'll get the resistance of the world, and you will then see the change. It will begin in the next couple of weeks to move through you and become part of who you really are. And I think that that's one of the ways that we work with that. I've also worked with, fear of snakes, fear of heights, fear of, things that we know people can be afraid of. And you just tune into that, go to the Snakeatorium in the zoo and tune into how you are a snake, how you wiggle around things, how you dart and dash, how you have poisonous fangs, so that you feel the internal nature of the snake. One of the beautiful things about humans is, in one sense, although we may not like it, we can feel every single animal and insect in this world and really understand it. We can put ourselves in their shoes, so to speak, and say, it's because we don't want to feel those things. We don't like snakes, we don't like heights, we don't like tigers or whatever, that we are afraid of that particular place inside of us that represents that terror. And as we get through it, we'll have a ton of energy left over from the third wind moving through the system, that which I am, that I want to be, that which I'm afraid of, and all of a sudden the meditation sequence, the energy of the healing comes through as the third wind and begins to move me past the resistance of myself, past the resistance of my loved ones, past the resistance of my world, into a deep peace that includes all of those.
And I'm reading Sue. She says, I'm keeping my fear of snakes. And you know what? That's actually a really good point, because many of us do we're attached to our tension, to those things that might be blocking us. Now, granted, snakes, I mean, it's possible that you could be one of a Scorpio rising. Okay. But the snake
I'm
thing.
I'm also a Scorpio moon.
Yeah,
So
yes,
I have a fear of snakes, and I was always attracted to, as I would say, snaky women when in my 20s. And so I went to a Tibetan yogi, and he said, "Do you have any fears?" Of course, he said it with a Tibetan accent. And I said, "Yeah, I have a fear of snakes." And he looked at me and he goes, "Be the snake. Move like snake.
Yeah.
Your hands like snake. Your limbs like snake. Be the snake and feel the snake's heart." And I began, okay. And in the middle of that, practice every day, in the middle of that, I started being attracted to other kinds of people.
Interesting.
And so I changed it, but it was like the fear of snakes is only a symbolic piece that covers a bunch of other territory.
Yes.
And one of the things I just say about living in the Northwest is that there's only two kinds of snakes. There's a garter snake and a king snake, and both of them like to eat mice or mess around underneath and go after voles, and none of them bite you.
No.
So it's like...
But there is something about realizing that those blocks, even though it can feel like they're external.
Yeah.
That the thing that you're afraid of is something out there. It's a person that you've had conflict with. It is an event. It is something that it is a ball of cancer in your stomach that needs to be looked at. It feels separate, but it's not. And that realization, that deep understanding, that ability to look at that and go, wow, how did that get there? What is that about? What in me, I want to say created this, even though we're saying you don't necessarily create your own reality, but you were in tension with something, in conflict with a perspective, with something in yourself that was not in alignment with your inner truth. To be able
But you may not know anything about it.
Right.
And
so,
remember, those things are happening deep below the surface.
Yes.
And there's no way, a lot of times, that you know. You're just living your life, and then all of a sudden you got this little tumor.
Yeah.
And so it's like, how did that come about? Well, you can usually pick one or two things that you can change. And but you'll need some help. With somebody will help you with that, because again, it's the same as the Titanic. Okay, you've hit the bottom part of the iceberg that you can't see. Cancer is something you cannot see.
Right.
So to say, when someone says, "Oh, you created cancer," you're a smart person. You should sit down and figure out how you've done that. And you go, actually, it's below the level of seeing. It's below the level of smelling. It's below the level of thought. It's not really a thing like that. And it is part of you. Mm-hmm. So, but if you pick one or two things to change, realizing that some aspect of the way you live your life feeds this thing.
Yes.
And then you begin to, all of a sudden, once you're out of it a little bit, out of the loop of it, you begin to see some of the things that you can work on. You may not be able to see all of them, but you can see some of them, so that whatever system of healing you begin to employ will probably do you some good. Because
if you don't do that, no matter what kind of block is there, it's going to come back. The illness will come back. The emotional state will come back. If you can't look at it honestly and be able to see what inside you, what part of you are you aware of in this, and perhaps dissolve that. And it can be a little scary. I mean, that self-realization process
it's going to be scary.
Is terrifying because there's not even a story around it. It's very visceral, and it can cause a real feeling of terror, and it's something that is really better to have help maneuvering through. So that, imagine if you're a person, you're stuck here in this tense place. One hand, sorry, I don't mean to like block your face there. One hand is in the past, and one hand way over here. If you can see my hand, it's you're in the future and you're in the past. You're not going anywhere. You have to let go of the past and grab the future with both hands, so that you're no longer in tension with that conflict. And how you do that, it's a metaphor. It is not something literal. There's some jokes that are coming to my mind, but I'm not going to go there, I guess. Anyway, sorry everybody. Thank you for laughing. Last time you didn't laugh. Now you're sure. And everybody's like, yes, I'm laughing. Anyway, that is the point where self-realization can come into play. And you can learn a great deal about yourself, about what your fears have been limiting you in ways that you did not even realize. You had no idea. And it's almost like this magical thing that begins to occur once you recognize that and begin to go, oh, wow, now if you take this point where the tornado is like blown down your house, but you've got friends, your insurance company is reimbursing you for it, hopefully, or something else is going to be happening. But now, what kind of house are you going to build? Is it going to be in the same place? And if it is, can you make it a little more resistant to those kinds of winds that the tornadoes whip up? Can you change enough to become somebody different? So if that happens again, and it will, it's life is like that. Mm-hmm. Life happens. There will be things that you're in conflict with, that your intention is causing you to stop moving, to stop growing. But once you get the hang of that, and once you begin to see that, you can avoid things. A metaphor that's coming to mind that I love about this is, there was a story that I read about a number of years ago with this woman who was there's an F5 tornado coming. She's in Kansas, and this thing is huge. An F5 is like a mile long. Big. It's big. Really big and really fast. And she doesn't have a tornado basement the way most people do in the Midwest. So she's doing what they tell you to do and taking the mattresses, and they're in the hallway, and she's covering her and her kids, and she's like, you know what, this feels wrong. This just feels wrong. I know this is what everybody tells me that I'm supposed to do, but this feels wrong. And she did what they always tell you not to do, and she loaded her whole family and her dog up into her car, and she took off, and she ran away from the tornado as fast as she could. And you know what happened? Her whole house was totally obliterated. If she and her family had stayed there, they would have died. But because she followed her intuition, and she had listened somehow to that tension and realized, you know what? I feel this, and I'm going to honor it. I'm going to do something different. And that is the kind of power that we're hoping to help people with, so that you have that realization and you honor it, and you know when that tension, when that conflict arises, no matter what it's about, you'll know your inner truth because you felt it. You've gone there. You've dug yourself in and out and around, and you know the core of your being, what that feels like when things are resonating in a good, positive way, and you will know what to do.
That's an important technique, important place for us to get to, which is that level of intuition that we could rely on. Not just a voice in your head, but a sense of, it's moving through my whole body. This is the right thing.
Yes.
And you will feel that instead of just feeling fear. Okay, we say that fear is a form of frozen pleasure. Fear, terror comes through you. But if you've made the right decision and the face of the terror, you will feel a release all the way through the body. And you'll go, this is right. I'm going with this.
Yes.
It has to have a felt sense in order for it to be right.
Yes.
It can't just be the best thought you came up with.
And with that, I think we're done for this week.
Okay.
And are you here next week, John?
Am I here next week? Yes, I am.
We'll be back next Monday. Monday. All right. Take care. And may the winds blow you into a wonderful direction.